Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now today it's just me because I'm talking about a book that I just finished reading. Laura hasn't read it, so what does she have to contribute other than sass? She should be here. I'm going to talk to you today about Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. Now this book has been doing a bit of a hot trade online, you know. People have been talking about it on Reddit, on YouTube, and to be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I was recommended it by a friend of mine called Daniel, and all I knew about it at that point was that Christopher Buehlman is the same guy who wrote Blacktongue Thief and The Daughter's War. Two books that I've yet to read, but let me tell you, I'm gonna read them now because Between Two Fires came so close to being the best book I've read so far this year. Let me tell you, this has been a very, very good year for reading, so that really does put it in some high quality company. I'm gonna tell you a little bit of what it's about, and then I'm gonna tell you if that intrigues you to stop watching the video and go read it. Unless you kind of want to hear a bit more, and that's fine as well, you know? You do you. I'm gonna do me, you do you. Between Two Fires is a medieval folk horror set in France in a plague year. This is a time where the Black Death has descended upon Europe and it is killing like most people. Well, a third of people, but anyway, it is not a single person who's not affected by the plague in this book. You might think, oh, that's pretty fertile ground for a horror. It goes elsewhere. Although this book starts at being about the plague, it does not end being about the plague. The plague is throughout the book, but the plague is a backdrop to the real story. And I kind of don't really want to tell you what that is until a little bit later. So you have the option to opt in. It is kind of like a road trip book through medieval France with a disgraced knight, a angelic teenage girl who seems to have a direct communication line to the angels of God, and a drunk priest who has been disgraced in another way. And the three of them are going through France, going to places, following either their desire for revenge or their desire to bring holy salvation or sanctification to places. Basically, salvation and religiosity is the main theme. As I say, this is not really a book just about the plague. This is a book about people grappling with religion. And I'm gonna say, if that entices you, a medieval folk horror about the plague and religion, go and read this book. I'm not going to spoil it, but I am going to talk about some things of the places of where this book goes. So if you're still here, that means you want to hear, okay? This book is concerned with the supernatural, and it is concerned with the religious side of the horror. This is not just a book about the plague, as I say. This is a book about the war that's going on between heaven and hell that is being played out on the earth as its battleground. So, as Thomas, Delphine, and Mathieu go through the land of France, they are encountering creatures, they are encountering demons, they are encountering folk tales come to life in the most horrifying and subhuman way possible, which I really, really liked. I was raised religious. I have a complicated relationship with my childhood faith, which makes it kind of, for me, slightly more enticing as well, in that getting to kind of read topics that in some senses are a little bit taboo. In church you were kind of told about like demons and things, but this book kind of like spells it out plain. These forces like are just like they're running around, they're doing things, they're named. It is basically sort of like a Paradise Lost, Dante's Inferno, but a modern kind of folk horror visualization of it. There are creatures that are in the kind of more almost eldritch kind of Cthulhian kind of level of demonicness that are just wandering around and being demonic, which is terrifying. Really, really terrifying. Because what can you do against the forces of hell? What can you do when God isn't making a response to what is going on the earth? That tension is so chilling. It really puts you in a spot of futility. And as the characters go through France and encounter these folk tales come to life that have been essentially kind of brought out of the sea by this demonic war that's happening, you get to experience some really, really interesting set pieces. I will say, I'm not a big fan of in books, especially in my fantasy books. I think fantasy sometimes has a problem with its depiction of. I'm pleased to say that this book, although it does depict the threat of, it is handled with care It is handled with sensitivity. I felt like I trusted the author, Christopher Buehlman, as he went through this land, because obviously everyone has just lost their soul. Everyone has gone bad, and naturally, one of the party being a young teenage girl, that was always going to be a source of tension in the book. And because it's based in not a fantasy world, but in the real world, unfortunately, that means that it's kind of even more real. I will say, if you are sensitive to that, probably not the book for you. I'm sensitive to that, but I still managed to push through. I don't think it ruins the book. I think that it was necessary. As always with these things, you kind of have to approach it with some nuance. I'm a white male. I'm basically unthreatened by, thankfully. So my opinion perhaps isn't the one to trust on this. Maybe seek out some women booktubers who have read this book and see what their thoughts are on it, but I'm just going to say what my reflections were. The only thing that stopped this book from being the best book I read so far this year was the end, which I did feel was a touch rushed. As the book kind of goes on, it goes further and further into this kind of almost dreamlike reality. It kind of almost got away from Christopher a little bit, like there was a lot happening, which was all a satisfying culmination to the book, but there were kind of things that were opened and then closed off page, which I would have liked to have seen explored a bit more. I think that where this book mostly succeeds is in those folktales come to life. You know, those moments of horror out on the road. I thought those were really effective. And also, although the characters are essentially archetypes, I did actually feel that each of them were drawn very well, and their relationship was very well defined, and I liked how they interacted with each other, and I think they played off well against each other. One thing that really makes me excited to read The Blacktongue Thief and The Daughter's War is Christopher Buehlman's incredible prose style. His writing style is so built on specifics. He won't just say, Thomas fought in a battle. He will tell you the story of how he fought in Crécy, and he'll talk about the feeling of the armor on Thomas's shoulders and the mail. He'll talk about like the fatigue in his arm as he's swinging his sword, or you know, he is so specific and so visceral that it really puts you in a very immersive spot. There are some incredibly specific choices that relate to the folktales in this book, which I thought were so haunting. Slight spoiler for this: there's one creature who is described as having bit off someone's nose. And I thought that the choice of the nose, where did that come from? That is where I think Christopher Buehlman's strengths really are. The things his mind comes up with, how specific it is. I think that's the mark of a great writer. They are grounding it so that you can feel the sensations. I absolutely love this book, and I'm gonna give it 2 fires out of 2. I think it's probably approaching the top 3 books I read so far this year, possibly just edges out Kingdom of Death by Christopher Rocchio. It's been a good year for Christopher's. I absolutely loved Between Two Fires, and if you like your horror folk, or if you like your folk horror, then definitely check this one out. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Head over to @Hardy'sBooks on Instagram. We are building our Instagram following right now, so your like and follow and all of the things over there really does go down very well. Make Laura's day, please. And then once you've done that, head over to hardysbooks.co.uk and check out our range of fantasy and sci-fi books. More will be coming soon. Thank you very much, and catch you in the next one.